Welcome to Discovering. Tonight, the blue-spotted salamanders are on the move on Presque Isle Park in Marquette.
The salamanders are walking across the road all night.
And we take a look at the Michigan United Conservation Club and what it does. Plus a couple other quick stories about birds and bucks. So sit back and relax. It's Monday night and it's time for Upper Michigan's very own Discovering.
The secret streams that flow beneath the cliffs of colored stone. Forest thick and healthy with birch and pine and oak. Surrounded by the greatest lakes this world has ever known. The black bear's awesome presence as he roams the hills and fields. Call of the timber wolf, the loon's lonesome trill. The eagle soaring high above, the trout lies deep and still. These are what I treasure, the only way I measure feelings that I have for this fine land. There is so much to discover when you're a long-time lover of northern Michigan.
Why did the blue-spotted salamander cross the road? To get to the other side, of course.
Thousands of salamanders cross this road. In a species that most people might see one mucking around in the woods.
For a more in-depth and scientific answer, I met up with Dr. Jill Leonard, head of the biology department at Northern Michigan University.
So a blue-spotted salamander is a mole salamander. They're body length is about 3 inches plus a tail. They're called mole salamanders because really they spend their entire life underground. They feed on earthworms. We think that they use the tunnels of other organisms like mice and snakes and things like that. And we're actually currently doing a project trying to understand how they make it through the winter because they're not a species that freezes. So they actually have to go deep enough that they stay unfrozen for the winter. And then they emerge and go and do their reproduction and then go about their merry way.
Blue-spotted salamanders are native to the Great Lakes region of the U.S. and Canada up into Maine and eastern Canada. They are primarily found in moist, deciduous hardwood forests and swampy woodlands with sandy soil. Most of this habitat are places without a lot of human activity, but not Presque Isle Park. The city park is over 300 acres of prime salamander habitat. It's a beautiful, rugged peninsula that juts into Lake Superior, and it's a popular place for residents. And on Presque Isle Park in Marquette is a road that separates their spawning bog from their main habitat. And when they start migrating across the park for the spring breeding season, it's something to see.
They are coming out of underground to walk to their spawning habitat, so they reproduce in water. So even though they're terrestrial as adults, they have to reproduce in water. This is really the only time you'll see them unless you happen to roll over a log and just see one, which is very different than the thousands that cross this road.
A study done by Northern Michigan University 6 years ago found that up to 20% of the blue-spotted salamander population was being killed by vehicles during the spring migration.
Well, so for me, this started when I had a student who was a real gunner, who was really into herpetology, and he was looking for a project. His name was Eli Bieri, and so he discovered that there was a rumor of a migration of salamanders here at Presque Isle, and that they might be getting hit by cars. So we set up to do an evaluation of that in 2019. So we tagged animals, we collected them, we collected dead ones, we did all of that work. Yes, they were getting squished by cars. And so he was able to write that up, get a little publication out of it. And more importantly, we partnered with the Superior Watershed Partnership and the city. So we had to take it to the city to see about a road closure.
Since 2020, the park has enforced a 2-month nighttime road closure during the migration, which isn't always at the same time.
It varies dramatically. So past years, it's been 2-3 weeks earlier. Sometimes people ask me why the road closure is so long. Road closure starts in March and goes all the way to May. It's because it's the UP and the weather can be really different and it's super hard to guess when they're going to be able to come.
As soon as darkness descended on the park, the salamanders emerged.
So these salamanders are very much adapted for dark conditions. They live underground, so that's probably part of it. But it's also, if you think about these guys as a very soft, squishy little animal that dehydrates easily, nighttime is your play. So it's safer for predators. It's also easier for them to stay moist.
This mid-April night was rainy with a little thunder and lightning, and the salamanders were definitely on the move across the road.
Today's a good day. They like the rain. For them, really the trick is the nighttime temperatures have to be above freezing, probably not a lot above, but at least a little bit above freezing, and they would prefer it if it's rainy. So one of the things that is kind of crazy, even to me as a biologist, is to watch these little ectotherms that aren't good at freezing walk across the snow, but they do that just fine, and that snow, of course, provides humidity for them as well.
And the rain didn't deter the dozens of people who came to witness the migration.
It's a great way to really engage with these little animals. So of course, I'm a geek. I think they're really interesting and really cool, but most of the folks that come here haven't seen them before.
As word has spread about the blue-spotted salamanders, more people have come out to see them. To keep the salamanders safe, volunteer NMU students help educate these new amphibian enthusiasts.
I have a group of students that we call the Salamander Stewards, who are our people educators or people wranglers, depending how you think about it. So they're here to try to educate the public on how to sort of be good stewards and not step on them. They stay on the pavement so that it's really hard to see them in the grass, so they need to stay on the pavement. And then we also train them to have some information about the biology of the animals, and so they do a little bit of outreach. Sometimes they have little activities that they'll do for kids. One of the things that's really interesting, so people talk about whether, this is definitely a conservation effort. The salamanders are going to do this regardless, but it's a conservation effort. And then there's always this sort of tension between having lots of people come and see it, or maybe don't have so many people come and let them do their thing. I actually think we've got kind of a nice balance. Most of the people will come from maybe 9 until 11 o'clock, and then it gets late and they go home. The salamanders are walking across the road all night. The public is generally really good with them. The stewards help to discourage anybody from being silly or from little kids accidentally walking on them. But I think it's been a really nice example of a town that's embraced these animals, and they really come to just see them. They have no agenda. They're not trying to catch them. They take a ton of pictures, and then they leave them here, which I think is pretty awesome.
This year, 200 students volunteered to be stewards or help with the further studies NMU is doing on this species that there isn't currently a lot of research on.
I have a group of students that does data collection, really trying to understand the population, how many animals, but also really much more the timing of their migration, how environmental conditions play.
These guys were going to release back out over behind Moosewood, but yeah, we'll get their picture taken, and then we'll take them back out there. Oh. Yeah.
Dr. Leonard and students count salamanders, collect data, genetic samples, and photos of the salamanders, and are now even breeding salamanders to study their reproduction up close.
So that we can then collect the offspring and look at things like egg survivability, hatch rate, growth of the larvae.
Being that these critters prefer darkness, NMU students have even studied if flashlights affect them.
So one of my first students on this project, a woman named Anna Hill, she has spent the past 2 years studying how they respond to light. They drastically prefer it to be dark, no surprise there, but they are tolerant of the lights. They don't really do a lot of stress responses. They will freeze, so too much light is probably not great. I'm interested in thinking about the lights on the road as well, the street lights, but we've really recently done some work looking at filter colors, and it looks like having a colored filter on the lights may actually be helpful for them. A little bit, maybe a third of those animals that should show a response to the bright light don't show a response when you have a blue light or a red light. Sticker on.
It's just.
See, and now your light will be a little bit blue, just like the salamanders, and it won't be as scary to them.
The blue-spotted salamander is not endangered. However, due to loss of habitat, they are threatened in many states. Michigan is one of the only states with a substantial population. And thanks to conservation efforts like this, we can hopefully keep it that way.
I always love to tell everybody how wonderful it is. This is a town that is really sort of going the extra mile and doing conservation for a species that isn't in trouble, but is definitely a potential indicator of habitat degradation. So it's great to have them be sort of embraced and looked after before they get into trouble.
To learn more about the Michigan United Conservation Clubs, what it does, and why UP sportsmen and women should join, I sat down with Steve Windom, the Director of Development and Membership.
Michigan United Conservation Clubs was founded in 1937, so we're coming up over 87 years now, and we are the sportsman's voice in Lansing, and we are here to protect your right to hunt, fish, and trap. So when we were first founded in 1937, there was 19 hook and bullet conservation clubs that came together, and they wanted to insulate natural resources, policy, and management from political and social agendas. So we're a member-based organization. We're one of only 2 in the nation that has a grassroots policy setting process. So every member of MUCC gets a say in how we deal with these issues. We also do education, we do habitat and public land work, and we also publish the Michigan Outdoors magazine and the Michigan Outdoors podcast to keep everybody up to date on the important issues that are going on. So right now we currently have about 40,000 members. That's comprised of our 200 plus affiliate clubs. So Oakland County Sportsman's Club, Kent County Conservation League, Michigan Bowhunters Association. So those clubs affiliate with MUCC and they get to be part of our grassroots policy setting. And then we also have our individual members where anybody who is just an individual can sign up for $35 a year and they get all the benefits of our member benefits program and they're part of that policy setting process as well too. So we have 40,000 members in the state. We have probably 6 to 10 clubs in the UP. Hiawatha Sportsman's Club is one, Rayber Bay, Big Bay Sportsman's, UP Whitetails in Marquette County. So we've got a handful of clubs in the UP that are part of that process as well, and it's very important for us to have them engaged because we need a voice up there. We need someone to let us know what's going on. We need to people let us know the issues that UPers are dealing with, things that we need to be battling for in Lansing. Lansing's a far away from the UP, but we are there to represent the UP. We just need the people to join and be part of that process and let us know what issues they need us to take up and fight for them.
I asked Steve what the process is for sportsmen and women to voice their concerns on outdoor policies to the MUCC.
And so what you would do is reach out to our policy staff and you can submit a resolution. So that resolution has an outline, there are some talking points, our policy staff will help you craft and draft that resolution. That resolution is submitted by a member to the Conservation Policy Board. That is a group of 40 individuals from all over the state. So MUCC is divided up into 9 regions around the state. And there's 4 people from every region that represents that policy board. So there is UPers on the policy board. There's people who are from Northern Lower. There's people who are from Southern Lower. So we have a great representation of our state on that policy board. The resolution goes to the policy board. Basically, they're looking for 3 things. Is it in line with our mission? Does it have facts based in science? And is it going to enhance, our outdoor heritage? And so that goes there. It could be amended a little bit. You could have rewrites. You could have suggestions on things. But you're going to get that information to the policy board. They're going to vet it, and then they're going to pass it on to convention. So that's where we're at now. This weekend is our annual convention, where our entire membership comes together. Our delegates carry votes, and we debate these resolutions, and if it passes, MUCC gets to work on it. If it doesn't pass, we stay neutral, and we kind of wait for the membership to tell us when to go. So any member of our organization can start that process. It's very simple. It's all on the website. You can reach out to staff. We'll walk you through it. Submit it to the policy board. It passes through there, gets to convention, and we debate and vote on it.
I asked Steve if a resolution passes at the convention, then what happens?
Then we go to work. So whether that takes lobbying government officials, whether that takes working with the DNR, whether that takes going for some sort of grant funding or programmatic area of the state. But once we do it, we get to work. So a lot of these issues, like this weekend, we're talking about being able to set your tree stand earlier when you're baiting for bear, talking about reinstating the antlered harvest in the youth and the Liberty and the Independence hunt, right? So these things, when they're passed, MUCC then finds the correct person to talk to change and to push our agenda forward. So if we're talking about changing that antlerless restriction for the youth hunt, we go to the DNR and we work with the DNR. We go to the NRC, we work with the NRC. We go to the legislature and we have a bill drafted that makes law. And so we are working anywhere that we need to get these resolutions accomplished.
There is a lot happening right now in Michigan with hunting and fishing policies, and it takes strength in numbers to effect change or keep things from changing in the wrong direction.
I think the big thing is just know that it takes engagement, it takes involvement. Again, staff have no decision making. If you're mad at the organization, it's not any of us that are behind the desks that are trying to help you. It's a fellow sportsman or woman that got a certain issue passed or went a certain way with a certain topic, and you can change that. Any person, any member of MUCC, if you don't like something that we're currently doing, it's very rare that you actually have the power to speak up and make change. Here you do. You just got to come, engage with us, and engage with the rest of our outdoor community.
Spring is here, and birds are migrating back to the UP to breed and raise their young until it's time to head back south for the winter. I talked to Michelle Anderson of the Keweenaw Wild Bird REC about ways we can help our little feathered friends this spring.
Lots of simple things. If you have a window that birds hit every year, there are things you can put on that window to deter. So like decals or even like tempera paint, like in a pattern, something on the outside of the window to break it up. Because when a bird, they just don't see glass the way we do. They see the reflection of the sky and of the landscape, and they just cruise right into it. Providing native plants is a really great way, even better than feeders, because our feeders kind of, if we have a cat, the cat's gonna come a lot easier. Usually feeders are close to a window. That's encouraging kind of them hitting the window. So kind of just beefing up our native plants on our property, that's the best food for them. Trying to avoid pesticides when we can. 80% of birds, land birds, are feeding insects to their babies. So if we're killing the insects, then they're gonna get those insects and feed them to their babies, and in turn, so it's things that we don't think about. Tree trimming. So we need to be really careful during breeding season. I get a few clutches of babies every year, so people like to cut down dead trees. But I encourage folks, if it's if it's safe to do so, obviously. If it's against your house, you need to do it. But first really inspect and make sure. Birds are trying to prevent predators to come and eat their babies. So they want to make it as inconspicuous as possible. So to the naked eye, if you're not a birder, it's hard to see when they're nesting. And also cavities. So we have a ton of birds here that are cavity nesters. So like bluebirds, swallows, chickadees, nuthatches, the list goes on and on. So they actually dig out cavities and have their nests in there. So the more of those dead trees we're cutting down, we're taking habitat from them. And so even if we pick one or two of those simple changes, we can do a huge service to them.
As we just learned, mid-April is breeding season for blue-spotted salamanders. It's also breeding season for wild turkeys in northern states like ours. Spend time in the woods right now, and you'll hear the familiar beat of male ruffed grouse drumming to attract a mate. Plus, robins and every other bird that is flying around my yard right now signal that the spring mating season is here. For white-tailed deer, though, that season is months away. Or months ago, however you want to look at it. But one deer in Delta County seems a bit confused. Denise Wise of Gladstone sent me these photos she took on April 15th of a 6-point buck she said was chasing does around her yard. For one, it's bizarre that this deer is chasing does. But even more interesting is that he still has his antlers. White-tailed deer typically shed their antlers between mid-January and early March, and usually in that earlier time period the further north you go. From what I've read, latitude, nutrition, health, and buck age determine when they shed. A buck's dominance, rank in the herd, and the length of the breeding season can also affect timing of antler casting. Of course, there's always an exception to the rule, and this buck seems pretty exceptional. That's all for tonight, and I hope to see you right back here next week for Upper Michigan's very own Discovering.